Bruce Turkel is not as funny as the O'Sheas, but he is funny. Bruce Turkel is not as talented a musician as Mike Rayburn, but he is a musician. He's not as tall as Ed Robinson, but he is tall. He's not as rich as Alan Weiss, but then who is? What Bruce is the leading brand builder in the country. He's built brands for companies like Bacardi and Discovery Channel, and he's built a pretty good brand for himself, too. You've probably seen Bruce on Fox Business, where each and every week he shares his wisdom on branding with the country. And today he's going to share what he knows with all of us. If you want to know how the big boys build their brands and how you can too, please help me welcome Bruce Turkel.
Your brand is not about you. I want you to take a little trip with me. Think about the last time you checked into a hotel. Not this hotel, but the last one you were at. You went up to your room, you put down your bags, you walked into the bathroom, and right there on the toilet was a giant cockroach. Now think, 20 years ago, if this had happened, first thing you would have done is screamed. And then you would have gone to the phone and called housekeeping. But today, what's the first thing you would do? You would take a picture of it, exactly. And you don't even need to get your camera, because your camera's inside your phone, and your phone, let's face it, was in your hand, because you walked into the bathroom like this. So you take a picture of it, and then you write 6 letters. OMG, WTF, there's a cockroach in my room at the XYZ Hotel. And you hit send. And instantly, that message shoots around the world. And your 2,000 business associates on LinkedIn, and your 4,000 followers on Twitter, and 1,871 of your closest friends on Facebook know about the cockroach. But it doesn't stop there, because they all retweet it. And as they used to say in that shampoo commercial, they told 2 friends, and they told 2 friends, and so on, and so on. And it doesn't even stop there, because one of your idiot friends has a cockroach page on Pinterest. And they uploaded a magnificent example of the Malaysian howling cockroach spotted at the XYZ Hotel. And if the XYZ Hotel is not monitoring their social media, they don't even know this is going on. What they know is that their occupancy rate is dropping, that big Mandelbaum bar mitzvah was canceled. They have no idea what's happening. Now, none of you have disagreed with me on any of this, yet all of you still believe that you control your own brand. So what I want you to do right now, by the way, is reach into your pockets or on the tables and pull these things out. I know you've all got them. If you're using an iPad, that's fine. If you're using those new bigger ones that are really unfortunately called phablets, pull out your phablet, and I want you to put your finger on the power button. That's right, come on. Okay? And I want you to turn your phone on. Because here's the deal. If you're not dealing with these things every day in your speeches and in your brand, then you're not dealing with the way the world is working right now. What I want you to do, hey Dave, can we advance the slide? There we go. What I want you to do is I want you to be busy on these things while I'm talking. You could be emailing or texting with each other. Of course, if you went to the event last night, you might need to change your marital status on Facebook. I get that. But I'm going to think you're tweeting about me. And by the way, there's my address, so that should make it easy for you. We're going to see if we can make my tweet address trend. And we're going to wait for this to change, aren't we? What you need to learn is about something called brand aid. Because what matters today in the world of these devices is you building your brand. You heard what Philip said. This is the way people are communicating, and what they need to do is to communicate about you. And we're going to do it with brand aid. So I want to tell you a little story. A number of years ago, the year 2000 to be exact, was a great year. My ad agency was doing terrifically well. Marriage is good, family is good, and my first book came out. And I was invited to do a book signing at a very prestigious design event in Chicago. So the night before the event, we were up there and they had a dinner for us, and I'm sitting at that special table, and right next to me is a guy by the name of Steph Sagmeister. Now, I don't know that any of you all know who Steph Sagmeister is, unless you're graphic designers, but at the time, Sagmeister was the design guy. He was the it boy in the design industry. Steph was what we call, the demographers call a PDB, people dressed in black. All the cool kids, right, are always wearing black. And he was German. So just like Philip, that meant that he spoke English better than I do. Except he kept enough of his accent to be charming. My wife is sitting next to me, and next to her is the design director of one of the most important corporations in this country, and one that has built their entire reputation on design. Clearly, they would have been a perfect client. As I said, life was good. So the next morning, I get up early to go down to the book signing, and right before I leave, my daughter, Allie, who's about 6 years old at the time, Allie asked if she could come with me. What could be better than that? So the elevator doors open, Allie and I walk out, and we're holding hands, and there's a line waiting outside of the expo. And Allie turns to me and says, "Daddy, are all these people in line for your book?" Now, sensing a teaching moment, and not wanting to be quite as presumptuous as I was feeling at the moment, I said, "Well, you know, sweetie, I'm pretty sure some of them are here for Steph's book, too." So we walk into the expo, we walk past this long line of people, and I'm trying not to make eye contact. And we go in, we're passing all the booths, all these people. The signing area is in the back and around the corner, and I go around the corner, and there's the two booths. And when I get to the two booths, here's what I find. Every single person in line is in Steph's line. There is not one person in my line. I think it was the worst moment of my life. But I sit down, I arrange all of my Sharpies and all of my books, and my daughter starts drawing with the Sharpies. She's having a good time. And I still try not to make eye contact with the people in the line, because when I do, they give me what we call in Miami that "pero mira que pobrecito" look, which for those of you who don't speak Spanish means, "you poor thing." It's that look of pity, right? We've all gotten it from up here one time or the other. It's that look of pity. So I'm not making eye contact. My daughter's drawing. I'm just feeling awful. When all of a sudden, Allie decides to take matters into her own hands. She jumps up. She scoots under the table, parts the curtains, and goes and tries to drag people over to see my book. With that smile, saying, "Come buy my daddy's book. It's really good." Okay, I can admit to you, I just got goosebumps just remembering that. Now, I think this was the worst moment of my life. I was wrong. Because right then, who comes walking up but the most important person in my life, my wife, and who is she with but the design director of that company we had met the night before. because they ran into each other at the breakfast buffet, and she suggested that he come see her superstar husband, and maybe we won't have to wait in line. And maybe she can even get him a book. Well, yeah, she could, because I hadn't sold one. By the way, Steph at this point had sold all his books. He was now, I mean, he could have started selling my books. He could now do the grip and grin with people and taking pictures. It was awful, but it was also a road to Damascus moment, because it's when I had this epiphany. Because here's what I found out. Nobody bought my book. They didn't know what was in it. Everybody bought Steph's book. They didn't know what was in his book either. Neither book had been released yet. We actually had to pull off those plastic condoms that they put around them to protect them. Nobody knew what was in our books, yet they bought his and they didn't buy mine. And that's when I learned the key to building a brand. Because let me tell you something, folks, it was the brand that sold Steph's book. And it's a few words, and I want you to remember these. Pull out the phablet, the phone, whatever, or paper and pen if you want, and write it down. People don't buy what you do. They buy who you are. Did you get that? People don't buy what you do, they buy who you are. Because if they buy what you do, they have 45 or 55 minutes in an agenda that they need to fill. And you know what? They could call any one of us in this room, and we could do the job. If all they need is a speaker, or 45 or 55 minutes filled, they could call any of us. People don't buy what you do, they buy who you are. So the question then becomes, how do you create a brand that people want? And how do you create a brand that stands out from all of the other 1,500 people in this room who do what you do, and let's face it, are just as good? How do you become that person who has the calendar that we all envy? And not the ones that people lie about, but the real one. Well, let me tell you, this is not a new problem. This problem goes back hundreds of years. How many of you have heard about a guy named Johann Sebastian Bach? Raise your hand. Okay, so Bach was a composer. He was a very famous composer. But he didn't become a famous composer until later on in his life, just like many of you are not famous speakers yet. Bach was actually a harpsichord and a violin teacher. And a lot of the music that later on in his life became his famous pieces were little ditties that he wrote for his students. One of them is a piece of music called Minuet in G. Now, I need a show of hands. Any of you who have kids who have taken piano lessons have heard Minuet in G. Keep your hands up. Do the rest of you have kids? Put your hands up. Those of you who have not raised your hands yet, do you know what kids are? Okay, and those of you who still refuse to raise your hands, were you once a child? Thank you. So he wrote Minuet in G, and it's critical that you know Minuet in G. So when we were organizing this event, one of the things I asked for was to have a baby grand piano put right here on the stage. Actually, the tape lines are there for it. But I found out there's 3 problems with my request. Number 1, Stacy apparently has something called budgets. I'm an art director, I don't know what that is, but apparently that caused a problem. Number 2, I didn't know this, but David Glickman, who organized this incredible event, is a piano player. And he doesn't like other people playing piano on stage. And number 3, I can't play the piano. But I figured that, you know what? Johann Sebastian Bach didn't play the piano either. He played a harpsichord, which as far as I know is a miniature piano. So I figured I can bring a miniature harpsichord, which I did, and it looks like this. And I'm going to play Minuet in G for you. And Minuet in G sounds something like this. Thank you. You know, every time I play one of these in public and people applaud, I always wish my wife were here to see it. And this morning, she is. So thank you, sweetheart. So Minuet in G, do you all recognize it even with my tortured rendition? Okay, so then we're going to jump from a guy, from Johann Sebastian Bach, to a guy by the name of Sonny Boy Williamson, my personal idol. Now, Sonny Boy and Johann Sebastian Bach are about as different as two guys can be. Johann Sebastian Bach was short. Sonny Boy Williamson was 6'6". Bach wore that red velvet kind of Eddie Munster suit with the pilgrim shoes. Sonny Boy had been to England where he played with the animals and the yardbirds, and he only wore black English wool suits. He was a PDB as well. And Sonny Boy was also a composer, and he wrote lots of great music that you have heard, and it was redone by the Animals and the Allman Brothers and lots of bands. And Sonny Boy wrote a piece of music called Peachy Tree. And Peachy Tree sounds like this. Thank you again. Now, here's the amazing thing. Both of those guys are as different can be, right? Sonny Boy Williamson is African-American. Johann Sebastian Bach is European. The guys are different. The music is different. But the amazing thing is both of those pieces of music use exactly the same 7 notes. And if you remember The Sound of Music, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. Yeah, there's do, but that's an octave. Do, do. It's the same note. It's just 8 steps apart. Every piece of Western music uses those same 7 notes, yet they use them in different ways. They create different sounds. They create different brands. And so as you look to build your brand, there are 7 specific things that you need to do, which we're not going to talk about from this stage, but I'm going to do a concurrent session right after this, and I'm going to take you through those 7 points. Before I do, though, I have to help you with something, because we all suffer from 3 myths that keep us from building a brilliant brand. There's 3 of them, and we got to get them out of the way before we can replace them with something good. The first one is something called the myth of uniqueness. Now, the word unique means unlike any other. It doesn't mean kind of unlike any other. It doesn't mean sort of like any other. It means unlike any other. You can't be a little unique any more than you can be a little perfect, a little excellent, or a little pregnant. You're either unique or you're not. But here's a problem. The world doesn't like unique people. Joan of Arc, burned at the stake. Vincent van Gogh committed suicide. Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison all died of drug overdoses because they weren't accepted because they were unique. The problem is, each one of us grew up, either in this country or elsewhere, watching Western culture and Western movies like this one, and think about the story, think about the arc of a Western movie. The town is beset by some horde of awful people, and then one day, the unique stranger rides into town. And through a combination of cunning and strength and courage, and usually some cheating, he runs the bad guys out of town. Then what does he do? Does he stay and marry the pretty girl and raise a family and take them to PTA meetings? Does he build a home for bow-legged cowboys? No, he leaves. He gets on his horse and he leaves. And therefore, we all start to believe that that's the way we're supposed to do it. We're supposed to be these unique individuals. But the truth is, we all stand on the shoulders of giants. And the truth is, while you're looking for this uniqueness, you're missing your opportunity to be out there selling. I saw a great tweet the other day. Somebody wrote, OMG, I just saw Madonna on the subway. And then not 2 minutes later, somebody tweeted, that means tomorrow you'll see Lady Gaga, only she won't do it as well. Because what is Lady Gaga but Madonna in a meat dress? We all learn from each other, and you can't be a little unique. So get over it. Being different is not a brand. Wearing a skirt at every event you go to is not a brand, even if you're a guy. Okay? For this group, let me just say, being bald is not a brand. It's a hairstyle, or it's a lack of hairstyle, or it's a skin style. It is not a brand unless maybe you're a woman. You can't be a little different. So knock it off. Okay, point 2 is called the myth of competency. The myth of competency. We all think we need to be the best at what we do in order to be successful. And I got to tell you, I hear from this stage every single year that I've come here, for 12 years in a row, I have heard somebody say, a great speech is your best brand. Now, truth be told, other than the time I spend with you all here, I don't live in the world of speakers. I live in the world of ad agencies and Fortune 500 companies and branding firms. And we have a term, a scientific business jargon, for something like a great speech is your best brand. It's called hogwash. A great speech is not your best brand. A great speech is your product. If you don't have a great product, you're not in business. But really, it's table stakes. It's the ante that gets you into the game. But that's it. We all have that friend who is the most amazing guitar player you've ever heard, right? You tell your friends, oh, dude, he's better than Clapton. And maybe he is. But he sits at home all day doing his arpeggios. And if he never gets out there and sells what he does, nobody will ever hear it. Sting said it best. The search for perfection is all very well, but to look for heaven is to live in hell. You don't have to be the best at speaking. You have to be the best at building your brand. And that leads us to the third myth, which is the myth of mindfulness. The myth of mindfulness. I want you all to do a little experiment with me. Take out a piece of paper and a pencil, or you can use your phablet or your laptop, whatever you like, and at the very top, I want you to write, I know they're the best. Okay? I know they're the best. And if you're writing it, put a big line. And then below it, I want you to list 3 speakers that you know are the best. And I'm not going to tell you who they are, but my guess is that you should put Philip on your list because you are awesome. So put 3 speakers that you know are the best. You want to speak like them. You want to act like them. You want their calendar most of all, okay? I know they're the best. And then, they're the best. Circle it, underline it, because they're the best, right? They're awesome. But here's the key. It's not the words they're the best. It's the 2 words in the beginning. I know. The reason they are on your list is because you know about them. But we're all so busy with mindfulness. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel your butt in the seat. Be at one in the moment. That we're so busy thinking about ourselves that we never think about the other person. Mindfulness means you're concentrating right there, but what you want is to be in the minds of the person who's going to hire you. If I say it's not what you know, you're all going to yell out what? It's who you know. But let me tell you, it's not what you know, and it's not who you know. It's who knows you. Because the business is not built on cold calling. The business is built on people calling you back, or more importantly, calling you before you ever reach out to them. And there's only one thing that does that for you, and that's a great brand. So if you're ready, and if you can put these myths aside, then let's learn how to build a great brand, shall we? Really? That's the best you can do? This is going to change your business. This is going to change your life. This is going to get you to be those folks that are on your list. Are you ready? Yes. Okay, I can work with that. So here's what I want you all to do. I don't want you to reinvent the wheel. This is not a meeting, a talk rather, about creativity. What I want from you is to learn from the big boys. So you remember Apple did a campaign when they first came out with their iPod? And they showed these big fields of color, and then they showed silhouettes dancing in front of them, and you could see the product. It was a white rectangle with a white wire, and they did them for men, and they also did them for women. And the question is, what was Apple trying to tell you? Well, think about our three myths. Were they trying to say they were unique? There were other MP3 players out long before Apple came out with the iPod. Were they trying to say that they were competent, the best? They never told you anything about it other than you could hold 1,000 songs in your pocket, which, by the way, you could do with the other products. Were they trying to tell you how great they were? Mindfulness? No, no, no. They made silhouettes because that silhouette could be your aunt, it could be your grandmother, it could be you, it could be you, it could be it could be your best friend, or it could be you. Was Apple saying that all those people will like an iPod? No, what Apple was saying was you will love an iPod. Or I want you to give me a little latitude up here, because I have a problem. You know the saying that if the only tool you have is a hammer, the only solution you see is a nail? So I look at everything from a marketing point of view. And so every 4 years, we are made privileged to watch the most important branding event of all time. And it's not the Olympics. It's the race for president of the United States. Because you got two brands, and they're selling against each other, and we're all consumers. And we vote with we purchase with a very limited resource, our votes. And we only get one, unless you live in Florida. But that's a whole nother story. We only get one. And it's winner take all, right? It's a zero-sum game. You win or you don't. So put your political leanings aside. If you like what happened, fantastic. If you don't like what happened, too bad. This is not about politics. But I want to show you someone who really figured out how to build a brand. This guy brought us something we had never seen before. A name we had never heard of. It'll come up in a minute, I'm sure. A name we had never heard of. Awareness we didn't know about. There we go. And even packaging that was a little bit different than what we were used to. I mean, if you go to Disney World and you go to the Hall of Presidents, there's Mr. Washington, there's Jefferson, there's the Roosevelt boys, there's the Bush boys, they're all doing this, right? You could sing that Sesame Street song, one of these things is not like the other. We had a product we had never seen before. And yet, when we went to vote, a majority of us purchased this product. Why? 3 words that will come up on the screen eventually. There we go. Yes, we can. I personally believe yes, we can is the second best advertising line ever written. Yes, it's positive. We, it's aspirational. I'm sorry, it's inclusive. Can is aspirational. Yes, we can, and we did. We went and we voted. But here's the key. 2/3 of first-time voters, 68% of first-time voters picked this product. Why? Because of a great brand. And I want you to have this same thing, this great brand. So let me show you how it's done in Germany. In Germany, this is because of you, Philip. In Germany, can we change the screen, please? Or not. In Germany, there are... Yes, we can, yes. In Germany, no, I thought I saw flash. There we go. In Germany, there are 5 car companies. There's Opel. There's Mercedes-Benz, and they're not showing up. There's BMW. There's Volkswagen. And there's Audi. They all manufacture exactly the same thing. They all manufacture cars. Hey, David, can you advance the slide, please? They all manufacture cars. And if you look at them, there we go. Hey! Let's have a big applause for David, because he's back there clearly dealing with a problem bigger than any of us are. So thank you very much for your help. They all manufacture exactly the same thing. They all make cars. And if you think about the Opel Senator, the Mercedes C-Class, the BMW 3 Series, the Audi A4, the Volkswagen Passat, they're all within 1 inch of each other in height, in length, in width, in wheelbase. They look the same. They smell the same. If you were in one and you were blindfolded, and hopefully you weren't driving, you can't tell the difference. But the car companies need you to tell the difference. So right on the front, they put a logo. And in the case of Opel, the logo is a lightning bolt. In the case of Mercedes-Benz, the logo is a peace sign. Dave, I need those new logos. I feel like I'm in 2001. Dave, this does not compute, Dave. Can we bring those up? Okay, so why don't we put these on the camera? Good idea. How about that? Oh, there we go. They're showing up. So we have Opel and we have Mercedes-Benz. But look at them geometrically. Opel is divided in half. Mercedes-Benz is divided in thirds. BMW, the ultimate driving machine, is divided in quarters. Volkswagen did not divide theirs into fifths. They just took the Mercedes-Benz logo and they turned it over. They took the V and then they eliminated the vertical and made it a W. And then the guys from Audi came along. They didn't know what to do. They just took the other guy's circles and added them. So even the logos are exactly the same. And yet, the cars stand for very different things, don't they? What does a Mercedes-Benz stand for? Luxury, good. What else? Safety, good. Luxury, safety. Engineering, terrific. And what's the one no one ever likes to say? Their status, they're expensive. So a Mercedes-Benz is luxurious, it's statusy, it's safe, it's well-engineered, right? A BMW is luxurious, right? Safe, statusy, well-engineered. But a BMW is one more thing. What else is the BMW? Performance, sporty, right. Now, here's where the rubber meets the road. Here's where branding becomes really exciting. Because here's where all the difference is. Those attributes, quality, expensive, statusy, well-engineered, the attributes of the brand become the attributes of the consumer. We used to say you are what you eat. We now say you are what you consume. A Mercedes-Benz driver is affluent, classy, well-engineered, and safe and conservative, right? And a BMW driver is all those things, but they tend to be a little hipper. They're PDBs, which does not stand for people driving BMWs. It's people dressed in black. If you can create a brand badge that your customers use to brag, like we all use those luxury cars, you have created the type of brand that will build your business. Here's what I know. A good brand makes people feel good. A good brand makes people feel good. A great brand makes people feel good about themselves. A great brand makes people feel good about themselves. And the reason why, as simple as can be, is because a great brand is all about them. A great brand is not about the brand, it's all about them. And why? As I told you in the beginning, because your brand is not about you. Thank you very much.